With regard to my formal education and the number of years that I have been involved in agriculture, I suppose that would be most of my life, because I was born and raised on a farm, primarily cotton, wheat, and small cattle operation, hay crops. Graduated from McGargle High School, which is south of Wichita Falls, Texas. Then I went on to college at a junior college, and then 2 years later I transferred to Texas Tech to complete my Bachelor of Science degree in agricultural education. I remained in school, completed my master's degree, and then I embarked on a 8-year career as a high school ag science teacher. 4 years at Dimmitt, Texas, 4 years at Graham, Texas. After that, I went to Stillwater, Oklahoma. Spent 2 years working on my doctorate of education in ag education. And there happened to be an opening at Texas Tech for an assistant professor when I completed my degree there, and so I came to Texas Tech in 1977. Spent 30 years at Texas Tech, first as an assistant professor in agricultural engineering and ag education, initially teaching mechanized ag courses, and then the second year I was here, I was full-time agricultural education in teacher education. 6 years later, I was asked to join the administration in the college. So I went to the dean's office as assistant dean, and then associate dean, executive associate dean. In the last 4 years of my career, I spent as interim dean and dean of the College of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Texas Tech. Well, I suppose there's a number of milestones I might consider, but really there's one that I think is most rewarding, and that is seeing our students excel. Whether that would be while they're a student at Texas Tech or after they graduate and enter into their careers, and just knowing that maybe in some small way I had a part in their education and their training that helped them be a success. Well, there have been a lot of changes in agriculture. In my generation, I can think back to the first time I drove a tractor as a young boy, about age 9. And so one of the huge changes is the size and scope and the performance of equipment and machinery, and the size of agricultural production units that's dictated by the economy of scale. And changes in the input industries and the service industries for agriculture that have grown so much. The development of genetically modified crops, precision agriculture. The ability of crops to resist disease and insects and chemicals, and the tremendous increase in yields that it has brought about. So the greatest change, probably the size and scope of agriculture, and the knowledge and information, the skills and the education necessary to be successful in production agriculture. And probably the next generation, your generation, will see as many changes as I've seen. Well, that's a hard question, because I probably need a lot of help. So there were a lot of people that motivated me and that were role models. I can think of several. I guess I'd have to start with my father, who I think instilled a sense of honesty and dedication, of loyalty and strong work ethic. And I hope that I demonstrated some of that in my career through the years. When I was in high school, we had a high school superintendent in our small school that also taught science, and he was a man of vision, just a great guy, had great leadership qualities, and I often thought as a high school student, I wish I could be like him someday. When I taught high school ag, there were a number of ag science teachers that I considered role models, and when I was a student at Texas Tech, T.L. Leach, who was chair of the department then and chair when I returned to Texas Tech as a faculty member, was an inspiration. He was the knowledge base in ag education in Texas, and highly respected. Dr. Louis Eggenberger was my major advisor on my master's program, and he shepherded the ag communication program when I first came back to Texas Tech, and he instilled in me the interest and the desire to someday end up in higher education. I had an interest in agriculture as a young boy. I love for agriculture, and interestingly enough, a lot of college students change their major once, twice, three, maybe even more times, and that's okay, that's normal. But as a high school student, probably a sophomore, I already knew that I wanted to teach. And so the love of agriculture and teaching just came together with a degree in agricultural education. And as I taught high school ag, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Great 8 years out in the field, and I thought, wouldn't it be nice if I could be in higher education and help prepare students that desired to go into that field. That would be the ultimate job. Well, I don't necessarily believe in fate. I believe one controls their own destiny, but I also believe that God has a plan and a purpose for you, and things seem to always fall in place through my education, through my two schools that I taught at, Graham and Dimmitt, in high school, and my move to Stillwater, Oklahoma. I was informed about the opportunity to be a graduate student there, interviewed for that job, and then was encouraged to apply for the position at Texas Tech, and I was just pleased that some people wanted me to come back to my alma mater, and it happened, and so that was my inspiration, my career track. When I came to Texas Tech, agricultural communications was a small program, a program that was about to experience significant growth. As a faculty member in ag education, I supported ag communications in every way I could, recruited students to ag education and to ag communications. I always felt, and still do, feel that ag education and ag communications are complementary programs. They're not competing programs, and they feed off of one another, and so it was easy to support that program. When I went into administration, it gave me an opportunity to help with budgetary matters, to help with new courses, expand the curriculum, and to recruit students to that degree program. And when we were able to apply for a master's degree program, I was able to assist in work with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board and getting that program through and to fruition. The implementation of ag communications at Texas Tech was very timely. There were a number of small programs across the country in agricultural communications, none in Texas. If you think about it, Texas Tech is located in the center of one of the most intensive and largest agricultural, most productive agricultural regions, not just in Texas and the country, but really the world. And so companies servicing agriculture and input industries, as well as production agriculturalists themselves, associations and so forth, had communications individuals, people on their staffs. They would generally hire these people from the communications field, generally mass communications, and then teach them agriculture. After our program was implemented and we had some graduates in the field, companies realized that our graduates were highly productive, and they learned very quickly that hiring an individual that loved agriculture, understood agriculture, and knew communications was a big plus. And so that was the point in time that I think our enrollments began to increase. Ag communications will always be important, and it will be increasingly important as agriculture becomes even more sophisticated, and as the percentage of production agriculturalists diminish because of this size and scope of agriculture that I spoke of. Initially, it was a small program that remained a small program for a number of years, but we were able to hire additional staff and faculty for ag communications. We began to attract excellent students, students that already had some of the skills and leadership capabilities and qualities that they just needed a major in which to hone those skills and further develop. And so as we began to attract these leaders, many of which were state officers in FFA, 4-H, other youth groups, they would bring their peers with them, and their peers were good students. So as we brought in new and excellent faculty, staff, and a student body, that caused the program to grow, and then our graduates were being hired. We quickly became known as one of the best ag communication program in the nation, and we grew there in a period of time to be one of the largest programs in the country. Communications will always be important. Public relations, communications, whether it be for the producer or whether it be for the agricultural industry as a whole or for the general public. And so that role is important now, and it'll become increasingly important. I might just add a caveat. Teaching is important, research is important also, and the research that ag communication does to foster good communications and understanding of agriculture is quite important also. Well, that's an easy one because it's an easy sell. Ag communications is a great major, and so one could ask the question, what can you do with agricultural communications major? And you could answer that by saying about anything you want to do, because we have graduates that are in demand in the ag communications field, but we also have graduates that have gone on to law school that are now practicing attorneys, graduates that have gone into the public realm, policy making. We have graduates that even gone on to med school. They're CEOs of corporations, presidents of companies, work with various associations and other public relations, advertising, and communications field. And so the opportunities are great, and it's just a great, well-rounded major to be in. So if you're a prospective student, you ought to seriously consider ag communications. If you're a present student, you made the right choice. If you're a graduate, I'm sure you're proud of your degree.